Did you know that more than 55 million people worldwide are living with dementia? What's even more alarming, many of them showed early warning signs, signs that were dismissed or ignored until it was too late. The truth is, dementia doesn't appear overnight. It starts quietly, with small changes that can seem harmless. But those small changes? They could signal something much bigger. Ignoring these signs could mean losing precious time to act, time to prepare, time to hold on to the moments that matter most. In today's video, we're revealing the 10 early signs of dementia that you should never ignore. Because the earlier you recognize them, the better chance you have to protect yourself or someone you love from what's ahead. This isn't about fear, it's about staying ahead of the curve. It's about hope, action, and giving yourself the chance to take control before it's too late. Let's dive in. Understanding dementia. Before we dive into the 10 signs, it's important to take a moment to understand what dementia really is and why it's so often overlooked in its early stages. First, let's clear up a common misconception. Dementia is not a specific disease. It's an umbrella term used to describe a range of symptoms that affect memory, thinking, and behavior in ways that interfere with daily life. The most common type of dementia is Alzheimer's disease, which makes up about 60 to 70% of cases. But there are other types too, like vascular dementia, Lewy body dementia, and frontotemporal dementia, each with its own unique challenges. Here's why this matters. Dementia often starts with subtle changes, small memory lapses, a moment of confusion, a missed step in a routine task. These changes are easy to write off as just getting older, but they're not. What makes dementia especially tricky is that it doesn't progress the same way for everyone. For some, it can develop slowly over years. For others, it can escalate rapidly. This is why recognizing the early warning signs is so critical, because catching these changes early can lead to a proper diagnosis, better treatment options, and, most importantly, more time to focus on the things that matter most. Now that we understand the basics, let's uncover the 10 early signs of dementia that you should never ignore. Some of these might surprise you, and they could be the key to spotting the condition before it progresses. Sign 1. Memory loss that disrupts daily life. Let's start with one of the most recognizable, but often misunderstood, early signs of dementia. Memory loss that disrupts daily life. Forgetting things from time to time is normal. We all occasionally lose track of where we put our phone or forget someone's name. But this type of memory loss goes beyond that. It's frequent, consistent, and starts to interfere with your ability to live your life as you normally would. For instance, you might forget recently learned information, like the details of a conversation you just had. Or you might miss important events and appointments, even after being reminded several times. Another example? Asking the same question over and over, even after getting the answer. It's not just forgetting something, it's being unable to recall it at all, no matter how many times you're told. This type of memory loss can also show up in your daily tasks. You might forget how to follow familiar routines, like making coffee in the morning, or you could find yourself needing constant reminders just to keep up with simple responsibilities. And what makes it even more concerning is that these memory lapses often cause frustration, not just for you, but for the people around you. They might notice you withdrawing or losing confidence in yourself because things that used to feel automatic now feel overwhelming. Here's the key takeaway. Occasional forgetfulness is normal, but frequent disruptive memory loss is not. It could be a sign that changes are happening in your brain, and catching it early could give you the chance to take action before it gets worse. Now, while memory loss is one of the most common signs, it's far from the only one. The next early warning sign has to do with something we all depend on every single day, our ability to plan and solve problems. Let's talk about it. Sign 2. Difficulty planning or solving problems. Next, let's talk about a sign that often sneaks up on people. Difficulty planning or solving problems. We all face challenges now and then when trying to figure something out. That's normal. But if routine tasks that used to be simple suddenly feel complicated or overwhelming, it could be a warning sign of something deeper. For example, you might struggle to follow a familiar recipe that you've made countless times before. You find yourself missing steps, using the wrong ingredients, or forgetting what comes next entirely. Another common scenario: trouble managing finances. Paying bills, balancing a checkbook, or tracking monthly expenses might become confusing or feel unmanageable, even if it's something you've done with ease for years. This isn't just about occasional forgetfulness, it's about losing the ability to stay organized or think through problems logically. Even simple decisions, like deciding what to wear for the weather, can feel overwhelming or confusing. And here's another red flag. People with this symptom may notice that tasks take much longer than they used to. They might start avoiding projects or responsibilities altogether because they feel too difficult to handle. This kind of difficulty can lead to frustration and self-doubt, but it's important to remember, this is not your fault. It's a signal that something may be happening in your brain that needs attention. If you've noticed these changes in yourself or someone you love, it's worth taking seriously. But there's another early warning sign that could show up in the things you do every day, like the tasks you thought you'd never forget how to do. Let's explore it. Sign 3. Struggling with familiar tasks. Let's move on to a sign that can feel especially frustrating: struggling with familiar tasks. We're talking about the kinds of things you've done so many times, they've become second nature. Tasks like driving to a familiar location, preparing a meal you've made for years, or even operating a device like your TV remote. Here's what this might look like. Imagine you're driving to your favorite grocery store, but suddenly you can't remember the route. You find yourself lost or unsure, even though you've driven there dozens of times. Or perhaps you sit down to cook dinner, but you can't recall the steps in the recipe, even though it's something you've made regularly. You might skip a step, use the wrong amount of an ingredient, or abandon the task altogether because it feels too confusing. This isn't about learning something new or adapting to change. It's about losing your grip on the familiar. And that loss can feel disorienting, even frightening. Another common example is struggling with multitasking. For instance, following a recipe while keeping an eye on the oven timer may feel impossible, even if you used to handle it with ease. What's important to understand is that this difficulty doesn't come from a lack of effort. It's a signal that your brain may be struggling to process and recall information the way it used to. If you or someone you care about is finding it harder to complete daily activities, especially ones that used to feel automatic, it's a sign to seek help and dig deeper into what's going on. Struggling with familiar tasks is a powerful indicator, but it's just one piece of the puzzle. The next early warning sign involves something we all depend on to stay grounded: our sense of time and place. Let's talk about it. Sign 4. Confusion with time or place. Another critical early warning sign of dementia is confusion with time or place. We've all had moments where we lose track of time, like forgetting what day it is for a second, or wondering how it's already the weekend. But with dementia, this confusion becomes much deeper and far more disruptive. For example, someone might forget the year, the season, or even the time of day. They might wake up in the middle of the night and believe it's morning. Or they could get confused about how long something has taken, thinking hours have passed when it's only been minutes. It doesn't stop there. This confusion often extends to place. Someone might forget where they are or why they're there in the first place. Imagine going to a familiar location, like a park or a relative's house, and suddenly feeling lost or unsure about how you got there. Even more concerning, they might have trouble recognizing familiar surroundings. A neighborhood they've lived in for years could suddenly feel unfamiliar or overwhelming, leading to moments of panic or disorientation. This loss of grounding in time and space can cause significant anxiety, not just for the person experiencing it, but for their loved ones too. It's important to note, this isn't normal aging. Occasional forgetfulness is one thing, but losing track of time or place in this way is a strong indication that something more serious may be going on. If you or someone you care about is experiencing these types of disorienting moments, it's a sign to act sooner rather than later. Seeking help early can make a big difference in managing the symptoms and ensuring safety. Confusion with time or place can feel unsettling, but it's just one part of the bigger picture. The next early sign of dementia involves something that might surprise you: your vision and sense of space. Let's dive into it. Sign 5. Challenges. Understanding visual and spatial relationships. The next early warning sign of dementia might not be as obvious at first, but it can have a big impact on everyday life. Challenges. understanding visual and spatial relationships. This sign goes beyond needing glasses or having difficulty reading small text. It's about the brain struggling to process what the eyes are seeing. For example, someone might start having trouble judging distances. They could misjudge how far away a step is and trip, or they might struggle to park a car because they can't gauge how close they are to the curb. Another common issue is difficulty with spatial awareness. Everyday tasks, like pouring water into a glass, might become harder because they can't align the glass properly with the pitcher. Even something as simple as reading can become a challenge. Someone might lose their place on the page or have trouble interpreting what they're seeing, especially if letters or objects seem to blur together in unfamiliar ways. Colors and contrast can also be confusing. For instance, they might struggle to differentiate between similar shades, or have difficulty seeing objects against a background of the same color, like a white plate on a white table. This is more than just aging eyes. It's the brain failing to interpret and make sense of visual information. And when these changes happen, they can lead to accidents, falls, or difficulty navigating spaces that were once familiar and easy to move through. If you or a loved one has been noticing unusual challenges with depth perception, spatial awareness, or visual processing, it's important to pay attention. These subtle signs could point to changes in brain function that shouldn't be ignored. Now, visual and spatial challenges can make daily life harder, but the next sign strikes at the heart of how we communicate with others. Sign 6. Problems with words in speaking or writing. The sixth early sign of dementia is one that can be particularly frustrating for both the person experiencing it and their loved ones. Problems with words in speaking or writing. We all occasionally struggle to find the right word or lose our train of thought. But with dementia, these challenges happen far more often and can disrupt conversations or everyday tasks. For example, someone might pause in the middle of a sentence, unable to remember the next word they want to say. Or they may substitute the wrong word entirely, calling a watch a hand clock or a fork a food stick. In some cases, they might repeat themselves, saying the same phrase multiple times because they've forgotten they already said it. Conversations can feel disjointed or difficult to follow, as if the person can't quite organize their thoughts or keep up with the flow. Writing can also become a challenge. Filling out forms, writing emails, or even jotting down a shopping list may suddenly feel overwhelming. Words might be misspelled, sentences incomplete, or ideas left unfinished. What's important to recognize is that this isn't just about forgetfulness. It's about how the brain processes and retrieves language. These struggles can leave someone feeling embarrassed, isolated, or hesitant to engage with others, which can further impact their overall well-being. If you or someone you care about has been struggling with words, whether it's speaking, writing, or even understanding what others are saying, it's time to take note. Language difficulties like these could be an early indicator of cognitive changes that require attention. While struggles with language are a clear warning sign, there's another one that's just as important. Sign 7. Misplacing things and losing the ability to retrace steps. Let's talk about the 7th early warning sign of dementia: misplacing things and losing the ability to retrace steps. It's normal to occasionally misplace your keys, glasses, or phone. But with dementia, this happens much more often, and with an important difference. The person can't figure out how to retrace their steps to find the missing item. For example, they might put their wallet in an unusual place, like the fridge, and then have no memory of doing so. Or they may spend hours searching for something, only to discover it was somewhere completely unexpected, like their shoes in the kitchen cabinet. Over time, this behavior can cause a lot of stress and frustration, both for the person experiencing it and for their loved ones. Imagine constantly losing track of important items and feeling unable to trust your own memory. Another key aspect of this sign is that the ability to logically think through where an item might be, based on past actions, starts to fade. This isn't just about forgetfulness. It's about losing the mental roadmap that helps us organize our thoughts and locate things when they go missing. What's more, these patterns can lead to feelings of suspicion or paranoia. A person might start to believe that someone else has moved or taken their belongings, when in reality, they've misplaced them themselves. If you've noticed this kind of behavior in yourself or someone close to you, especially if it's happening more and more frequently, it's a sign to pay attention. This isn't just about losing things, it's a deeper indication of changes happening in the brain that could be linked to dementia. Sign 8. Decreased or poor judgment. The 8th early warning sign of dementia is one that can have serious consequences: decreased or poor judgment. We all make mistakes now and then, but with dementia, poor judgment becomes a recurring pattern, one that can put someone's safety, finances, or relationships at risk. For example, someone might start making unusual financial decisions, like giving away large sums of money to telemarketers or charities they've never heard of. They may fall victim to scams, unable to recognize when something seems too good to be true. Another common issue is neglecting personal hygiene. They might stop bathing, wearing clean clothes, or grooming themselves, even though they've always been diligent about these things in the past. Poor judgment can also show up in social situations. A person might make inappropriate comments or struggle to recognize when their behavior is making others uncomfortable. They may have difficulty interpreting social cues, which can lead to misunderstandings or strained relationships. Over time, these changes in judgment can affect not only their safety, but also their independence. Loved ones may start to notice that they're making choices that don't align with their usual habits or values, leading to confusion and concern. It's important to recognize that these behaviors aren't about carelessness. They're a reflection of changes happening in the brain that impact decision-making and reasoning. If you've observed patterns of poor judgment in yourself or someone close to you, it's not something to overlook. These changes could be an early indicator of dementia, and addressing them early can help prevent further risks. While poor judgment can lead to noticeable changes, another early sign can be even harder to spot, especially if someone begins to withdraw from the things they once loved. Let's take a closer look. Sign 9. Withdrawal from work or social activities. The 9th early warning sign of dementia is something that often goes unnoticed at first: withdrawal from work or social activities. It's not unusual to want some quiet time or to occasionally feel uninterested in certain activities. But when someone starts to consistently pull away from hobbies, work responsibilities, or social interactions they used to enjoy, it could signal a deeper problem. For instance, they might stop attending their weekly book club, avoid family gatherings, or lose interest in hobbies they once loved, like gardening, playing cards, or knitting. Activities that used to bring them joy now feel overwhelming or frustrating. At work, they might begin to miss deadlines, avoid collaboration, or seem less engaged in tasks that used to come naturally to them. They may also withdraw out of fear of making mistakes, or because they feel they can no longer keep up. This withdrawal is often tied to changes in the brain that make social interaction and concentration more challenging. Conversations might feel harder to follow, and participating in group settings can feel exhausting or confusing. Over time, this behavior can lead to isolation, which may worsen the symptoms of dementia and impact emotional well-being. The person might feel embarrassed, frustrated, or ashamed of their difficulties, which only pushes them further away from the connections and activities they need most. If you notice someone withdrawing from the people and activities they care about, it's important to pay attention. This isn't just a mood shift. It's a warning sign that could point to cognitive changes happening beneath the surface. Sign 10. Changes in mood or personality. The 10th and final early warning sign of dementia is one that can deeply affect relationships and daily life: changes in mood or personality. We all experience mood swings from time to time, but with dementia, these changes are more frequent, unexpected, and sometimes out of character. For example, someone who has always been calm and patient might suddenly become irritable, anxious, or even angry over small things. On the other hand, a person who was once outgoing and cheerful may become withdrawn, suspicious, or apathetic. You might also notice increased confusion, fearfulness, or feelings of paranoia. For instance, they may start accusing loved ones of stealing their belongings or hiding things, even when there's no reason to believe that's true. In some cases, people with dementia may develop behaviors that seem completely unlike them, such as suddenly losing interest in activities they used to enjoy, or becoming overly dependent on others for reassurance. These changes are often tied to the way dementia affects the brain's ability to regulate emotions and process social cues. This can make it difficult for someone to respond to situations in a way they used to, leaving them feeling overwhelmed or out of control. It's important to approach this sign with empathy and understanding. These mood and personality shifts aren't intentional. They're a symptom of the condition. And while they can be challenging to navigate, recognizing them as a potential warning sign is a critical step towards seeking help. Changes in mood or personality can sometimes be the hardest signs to identify, especially because they may seem subtle at first. But when combined with the other signs we've discussed today, they paint a clearer picture of the early stages of dementia. By paying attention to these changes and seeking help early, you can make a real difference, for yourself or for someone you love. Taking action and moving forward. We've just covered the 10 early signs of dementia, and if you recognize any of these in yourself or someone you love, remember this: you are not alone. The most important thing you can do right now is to take action. Start by reaching out to a healthcare professional. Early detection can lead to better treatment options, greater independence, and more time to create meaningful moments with the people you care about. Keeping a journal of symptoms can also be helpful. Write down what you're noticing, how often it happens, and how it's affecting daily life. This can provide valuable insight for your doctor to make an accurate diagnosis. And don't forget the power of community. Support groups and local organizations can offer guidance, understanding, and resources to help you navigate this journey. Here's the truth. Recognizing these signs isn't about fear, it's about hope. By identifying them early, you give yourself or your loved one the chance to take control, to plan, and to make the most of every day. If this video resonated with you, share it with someone who might need this information. It could make a life-changing difference. And if you haven't already, subscribe to our channel for more tips, resources, and support. Together, we can navigate the path to better health and wellness. Thank you for watching. Take care of yourself and your loved ones, and we'll see you in the next video on Senior Wellness Path.